I would like us to start our meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Let me make use of the opportunity to welcome you, honorable members, as well as members of staff and other members that are part of the meeting. As I've indicated, it is a Standing Committee on Public Accounts meeting for purposes of looking into the annual report of the Department of Arts and Culture in the Western Cape, and also looking at vote 13 of the Provincial Parliament. Now, the department also consists of 3 entities which are also included in the annual report of the department. So this meeting is really for purposes of dealing with that. And I also like to bring to the attention of honorable members that the meeting is also an open meeting. In other words, it's a public meeting. It's a meeting that is open to members of the public. After our deliberations, we will also allow members of the public to participate or ask questions if they would like to ask any questions. Members of the public were informed about the meeting via 3 newspapers in English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa. So it's in that regard that I indicate that then if there are members of the public that are participating virtually, we will allow an opportunity for that. The meeting is conducted in terms of the virtual rules of the Standing Committee of Provincial Parliament. Now, before we start with the meeting, the first part of the meeting is going to be our interaction with the Auditor General. This is a closed session which is only open to the committee and the members of the committee and also to the Auditor General. Thereafter, we are going to open up the meeting, and then we will allow the department to join in, and also those members of the public as well. So can I get an indication, Mr. David, whether is it arranged as such?
Yes, Chairperson, that's correct.
Okay, no. Public Accounts of the Western Cape Provincial Legislature for purposes of looking into the annual report of the Department of Culture and Sport in the Western Cape, together with its entity. Now, the report is reflected in the department's report, and then we are only going to be dealing with the Section C as well as Section E of the report, and nothing else. And I would also like everybody to just concentrate on those sections. We will also, of course, allow members who want to ask questions on the entities as well, that report. Before we may start, also I want to indicate that this is an open meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. In other words, it is open to public, and the members of the public were informed via media in various newspapers, 3 newspapers, in English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa. So after we have finished with our deliberation, we will ask the members of the public who have participated, who have shown an interest, whether they've got any question that they would like to ask from the annual report. So just bear in mind that as well in report.
Reasons for material year-on-year increases or decreases. While in previous financial years, the comparative figures in the annual financial statements provided a measure of evaluating how well or how bad the department performed, the financial year under review is different due to the severe impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our sectors. We have, however, attempted to explain the reasons for material increases or decreases to the best of our ability. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the opportunity for us to present to you Part C and Part E of our annual report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD. Now, honorable members, I want us to then start that we'll be dealing with Part C as well as Part E of the report. Now, the Part C of the report of the department start from 158 and it goes up to 200. Now, I just want to get an indication again. I take the report as read because it was submitted timeously prior to members. And now I just want to get an indication of members. We will first start with Part C of the report. I see there's an indication of members who want to ask questions. I see Honorable Maseko, Honorable Nkondlo, and Honorable Partman. In that order.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, and also I want to add to Member Batman and congratulate the department for the outcome of their audit. Chair, just for the forward, I'm not going to start with the governance. I just want to ask a question to the minister or maybe to the HOD. With mentioning the issue of the COVID, I want to find out from the department if the COVID, one way or another, did it force them to deviate on their priorities, or was there any ministerial priorities that made the minister to change the strategy of the department to adjust to the demand of the COVID-19 with whatever that they were planning to do? And if that is the case, can she indicate to us, or the HOD can indicate to us, what were those changes that they made the priority, ministerial priority that they did financially? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Malunga. There's just some noise on the background. I don't know which one is that. If maybe Yeah, we can just mute that. IT, Mr. Davids, mute everybody. Only those one that are going to speak. Honorable Ngondlo. Honorable Ngondlo.
Sorry, Chairperson, I think I didn't unmute. Thank you, Chairperson. I was saying my questions will be on the emerging risk, the health and safety, and on the triple BE. Starting on the emerging risk, Chair, I think on it is page 160 on my electronic copy on the key emerging risk. And I'm interested to hear, particularly from the Minister, about this, what is related there of a shrinking budget envelope versus the societal exigencies, and how directly such affects this particular department of sport. And one raises this because I think in this Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, that I think the people in this space, I think, have been particularly affected by COVID-19, because at most, I think because of lockdown, people are unable, because at most this particular department's mandate is mainly through outdoor activities or massive kind of gatherings. So I would understand, I think, as one of the departments that has been highly affected, especially at a programmatic level. But what I'm interested in is a direct budget shrinkage of this department, or an anticipated, if any, in the new financial year. And what are some of the conversations that the Minister is having with in the cabinet? Because I think one of the things that I think we've been told is that whilst people are trying to save livelihoods, you know, one of the critical features of COVID is also the mental pressures that it places on individuals. And I think sports, arts, and a part of those human activities that are very important to the well-being of society. So that is why I'm interested to understand how the department is viewing this particular risk in rand terms. If you can just give an indication of how much actually such a budget was shrinked in this particular financial year, or anticipated into the future, and what are some of the conversations of trying to avert this based exactly on the demands of the communities that are beneficiaries to your department. The second one, Chair, I just wanted to understand, I think on the health and safety, which is on page 162, that I see that I think there were appointments that were made on the health and safety function of the department. Is it possible perhaps to just get an indication if this required an extra budget from the department, and if so, how much, and if there are any staff of the department that were affected by COVID during this reporting year. So I'm interested just to know the financial resources that were spent over and above the staff complement that had to be put together, and if this particular staff complement is something that is gonna be part of the department into the future, or it's something, if there's any solution to COVID that will be removed from the organogram. And lastly, Chair, in as far as the question on the triple BE, I just wanted to check, I think it's page 168, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going through the page, Chair, if you don't mind. Yeah, I think it's page 168. I just wanted to understand what is the meaning, because under, I think at the point under the criteria developing and implementing a preferential procurement, on the third, number 3, spend per turnover. I think on bullet number 2, if somebody can explain what does that mean when you say 12.09% was paid to large enterprises and 20.22 of the value could not be allocated to an ownership category due to such blah, blah, blah. If you can just explain in simple English, what does that mean? And lastly, to check, when the department says no in terms of criteria, under the criteria of entering into partnership with private sector, I just wanted to check, is the department not having any particular private sector engagements or partnerships with maybe privately established sporting or arts and culture entities, for it to then give such an indication that the department does not participate in partnerships with private sector. Just wanted clarity around that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Ngonlo. Honorable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, would you like us to keep our questions to Part C at this moment? Chairperson?
Sorry, Honorable Member. Yes, let's just stick to Part C for now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Firstly, then Chair, to the Minister and to the HOD, as well as the heads of the respective entities, I just want to say congratulations for getting a clean audit. It's difficult in the current times, especially once COVID had hit, in order to be able to get a clean audit. The Provincial Treasury businesses, if I'm not mistaken, you have actually exceeded procurement expectations. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Can we get a response from the department? We are unable to hear you, HOD.
All right. Can you hear me now, Chair?
Yeah. Yeah.
Chair, I was saying I will be responding to this question together with the CFO as well as Mr. Julie. Starting with Ms. Maseko's questions, I'll kick off with those and then I'll hand over to the CFO. The impact that COVID had on our programming and did we deviate from priorities, etc., and any major adjustments made. The one major adjustment we made was that we introduced a relief fund, which was not in our plans in the year under review. We redirected some funds towards this in order to support artists and athletes who had been negatively impacted by COVID-19. And we implemented that quite successfully, beginning in May, as early as the National Department. The National Department went out in April. We started in May. And then the other matters were more reviewing and revising of our targets that we had, because in the year under review, we had 3 adjustment budgets, which meant that all our targets were out because our targets are also aligned to the budgets at our disposal. So we had to revise our targets just to make so that we make sure that they are still in line with the budgets that have now been approved. There were some other elements that began to become of a significant priority given the impacts of COVID, such as mental well-being, etc., but most of them began to take expression in the current financial year that we are in, and some of the activities that we've begun to do kicked off in the current financial year. So I will not speak of them, but the lead-up began in the year under review. I'll now hand over to CFO to start with the emerging risks and then also speak about the shrinking budget envelope. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, HOD. Good afternoon, Chair, members, and the public. So I will be responding to the question raised around the emerging risk, specifically related to the shrinking budget. So firstly, to indicate that the net budget decrease for the year under review was about 140 million. So those or the adjustments happened over 3 different adjusted budgets as indicated by the HOD. However, just to indicate then how we have mitigated the risk, firstly, the impact on the actual budget reductions, which then obviously affected our service delivery. So there we had to adjust our targets, which HOD has touched on as well. But also to notice that even though the risk was mostly inward sort of focused, it did have an external sort of impact. So, for example, our sectors were severely affected by COVID-19, and the way we mitigated that was by providing much needed relief to our sectors. So we had committees that sat and we allocated the relief fund to both in the sport as well as arts and culture sectors. HOD has already touched on the mental well-being of our staff, and there we have continuously and are still, encouraging staff to make use of employee health and wellness that is available to staff. We also had a potential impact on governance. For example, just compiling the financial statements and making sure that we are able to access our systems, that our staff, are present, and knowing and understanding the processes given, the sort of new unprecedented environment, that in itself posed a risk. So in that respect, we ensure that staff are able to work from home. We basically provided them with the technology that they required, but also accessibility to our systems. And that is what we call the BPNRA sort of access to ensure that staff were able to access our financial systems. Yeah, I think I've covered all of those. And then there was a question around beyond the current financial year, whether there's any impact or risks to our budgets going forward. At this point, there is no risk. So the budget reduction was only related to the year under review, which is the 2021 financial year. But also to indicate part of the 140 million was related to conditional grant, which we place a high reliance on because 30% of our overall budget is accounted for or we tap into the conditional grant. So that in itself, so 22.6 million in sport and then 34.7 million within the library services area, which is quite a significant amount. However, I would like to put the members at ease to indicate that at this point, there is no sort of budget reductions on the horizon. So we've already gone for our intake 1 sort of discussion with Provincial Treasury. But obviously, we need to go to the second one, which will happen in January, and our final allocation letter we will only receive in February, at which point only we will be made aware of, possible reductions going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair, members, and everyone else. I'm going to speak on the appointments of the compliance officers as well as the steering committees and the 53 facility compliance officers. So in terms of the COCTA directives that came out for lockdown COVID-19, all departments were required to appoint a compliance officer from the senior management cadre, as well as have a steering committee in place to monitor and obviously, depending on what happens, to operationalize within the department. The department also has facility officers outside, so those were all appointments done without spending any money. It was staff that's currently in place, and they were just appointed the additional task of ensuring compliance with COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, so I will be responding to the BBBE question. So the one question was, I'm going to start with a no, where we've indicated no. So in that case, those areas were not applicable to the department. So the question was around whether we do have partnerships with private companies. So that basically refers to suppliers. So the question is no. When we do need private companies to assist us, we follow the procurement process. So we don't enter into partnerships outside of the procurement process. However, we do have partnerships and collaborations with NGOs within our sectors. And then an explanation of the spend per owner category. So that is really just what or part of the criteria that the BBBE Commission has put in place for suppliers to comply with. So they have to indicate, when they complete the forms, the dedicated forms, in order to indicate, or in other words, when we follow the procurement process, that is one of the criteria that we use, or that we would require them to report to the department in order for us to understand, at which level we should allocate points, in accordance with the PPPF policy. So again, so the ownership is part of the category. They must indicate the ownership in terms of black ownership, with 51% black ownership, and then so above and below 51%. And then the third one is the turnover, whether it is below or above 10 million. But again, that is the criteria that was put in place by the BBBE Commission. Thank you, Chair. The decision making.
Yes, Chair, just one last question. Mr. Julie will cover the one around the protective disclosures. While he's preparing for that, the decision making on the budget.
So, Member Bartman, so basically what we normally do is, once we receive the cut, for example, they would ask us to cut, as an example, 10% of our budget. We then basically have an EMT discussion, but what we found to be the most reasonable sort of approach to budget cuts is to do it proportionately. So we would look, for example, at per program, what is the budget allocated per program, and we would use that as a basis to determine the percentage that needs to be cut per program. So to confirm, we do it on a proportional basis. Thank you, Chair.
So good afternoon. I'm once again going to speak on the financial disclosures. So in terms of the requirements, all senior managers are required to disclose, complete a document on the system indicating their financial income and assets that they have. This is done on an annual basis, and the department for the last 5-6 years have had 100% compliance in that regard. Then in addition to that, all of the finance staff also have to complete that, as well as some of the staff that we identify who could be in a position that perhaps deal with supply chain management, etc. The department has had 100% compliance on all of those. Thank you.
And then, Member Bartman, you also had a question around the PFS and the reporting. So basically, what you would see there is all cases initiated in a given financial year and the movement of cases that has been passed from the previous year to the current year. So that, in essence, is what is being reported on page 161. So, so just to confirm then, for the year under review, we didn't have any cases that were initiated. So, because if that was the case, it would have been reported in here, in this particular report. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. We are done with the first round of questions.
Thank you very much, HOD. I see there's a follow-up from Honorable Bartman. Please go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chair. Just regarding 2 questions, I'm not sure if the department understood me quite well. So I'm going to attempt it again. The first one regarding budget. So I understand the procedure when you engage with Provincial Treasury, which is absolutely wonderful. That the engagement is there and that deliberation is there, and it's also wonderful that there's no foreseeable reduction on the horizon. However, when you deal with budget cuts, so if Deirdre is the HOD and Maklodi comes to Deirdre from Provincial Treasury and she's like to Deirdre, your department has to cut 50 million. How does the HOD and the people in the department sit around the table? How does that discussion, how does that process work? Or does it end up on the HOD's table or the CFO's table? The decision gets made and then it goes back to Provincial Treasury. How Deirdre submits a protected disclosure? How does the department deal with it? Or is it a process that you have to follow because everyone in the Western Cape departments have to follow the same procedure? Or does every department have their own procedure in that regard? And if you have your own procedure and Deirdre sent this issue into you, how long does it take to respond to Deirdre, for example? Thanks. Chair, I hope I've explained myself a little bit more. I'm not sure if I'm clear on this front. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Department.
Thank you, Member Bartman. So just to clarify then, again, in terms of our budget approach. So I have indicated that the discussion, so when we receive word from Provincial Treasury, and normally it would be sort of put on the table when we go to our intake sort of engagements. But it's confirmed via an allocation letter. That allocation letter is then discussed at EMT, which is our executive management team. And at that point, we will decide what the proportion of the cut should be for each and every sort of program. However, we do also take note of like key programs where we can't really, reduce funding in. So that we kind of isolate. But in the main, we would look at a proportional cut across the 4 programs, because the difficulty with our department, Member Bartman, is each program is unique within, the nature of their operations. So we've got, for example, sport, and then we've got arts and culture on the other side. So it becomes very difficult to say, okay, we're going to cut mass participation, because mass participation only affects sport. So therefore, the most realistic and fair way of doing our budget cuts, which has been working for us ever since we had to start implementing cuts, is to look at it from a proportional perspective, and the decision then lies with the program manager to determine where that cut should take place within a particular program. Okay, I hope I've clarified that. Sure.
Yeah, and just to add as well, every year in our strat session, we do go over all our programs and highlight ones that we are looking to scale and ones we are looking to reduce over time. And we use that same matrix to help in our decision making in the various components now. So when the program manager goes away and discusses with his team, the outcomes of our strategic sessions over the years, and most importantly, the most recent strategic session will be the one that will help in deciding which ones will be prioritized and which ones will receive most of the cut. But all of that is very well managed. Our top management team, as well as the ManCo, is fully involved in the decision making. When the program manager goes away, he discusses with all the people that make up our management committee for the department. Thank you, Chair.
And then just in terms of the protected disclosure, so the protected disclosure, that is in terms of the Protected Disclosure Act number 26 of 2000, which is managed by the Provincial Forensic Services in the main. So obviously we do not have the mandate, and we are reliant on PFS to support us, in that respect. So if there are for example, a whistleblower. If someone goes to PFS, and so let's say it's you, Deirdre, and you go to, you raised your issue with, or reported to PFS, their responsibility is to ensure that you are protected in terms of this Protected Disclosures Act. And it is a PFS mandate and not a departmental mandate. So departments are highly reliant on the support from PFS in that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD. Now, honorable members, I would also like to bring to your attention that the other accompanying report of the entities are also supposed to be part of the discussion. However, if you don't have questions on that, we are actually going to move on now to the next section of the report, if there are no further questions. If there are no further questions on the part C of all the reports, we are now going to move to section E of the report. And section E start from 202 of the main department of the department's report. I see Honorable Partman. Is it on section E, Honorable Partman?
Yes, Chair. Section E, and I have questions to two, one department and one entities, please.
No. Please go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I will start with the entity that I have questions to. It is the Heritage Western Cape. So I'll just give everyone a second to get to that document. Okay. Firstly, I would like to say, obviously, well done on cutting expenses. That was the first thing I was able to pick up on this particular budget. And I just wanted to ask, in terms of expenses on page 83. So on page 83, Chair, the other entities and the departments with the audit fees have more or less remained consistent.
Honorable Partman, you are on the entity page?
On page 83 of the Heritage Western Cape.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much.
No problem, no problem. Okay, so the other entities and the department has more or less remained the same or gone down in terms of their audit fees, but the Heritage Western Cape has paid, I think, maybe 23,000 Rand extra this year after the adjustments for audit fees. And I just wanted to find out what the reason for that was. Was it inflation? Was there something else that was extra that was audited? Just what is the difference there? And then on page 93, there are some unspent conditional grants from the National Lotteries Board, Department of Tourism, and US grant. Now, given the amounts, I'm assuming that it's the exact same from last year then for those particular three projects. And if we could just then please get an update on, have the projects been stopped? Are they rolling over? How will that money be spent? Must we give that money back? And then on page 94, under note 13, under consulting and outsourced services, there has been obviously a substantial decrease in expenditure there, but that is due to projects being on hold. And I just wanted to find out if we could just get an indication on which projects are on hold. Will they continue? And if they're going to continue, is there going to be a rollover of the funding? And then on page 95, I just wanted to congratulate the Heritage Western Cape. Based on my layman calculations, they've saved almost R1 million by going virtual. Now, the way I got to that, Chair, is I took The amount from travel and subsistence, which was 466,000 in 2020, they went to 25. The increase, obviously, in a communication amount of 85,000 because you had to have data for your peoples. And then obviously the decrease in entertainment, which is mostly due to catering. And my calculations are just maybe 733,800, which is almost essentially an 80% reduction in expenses by going virtual. And I just wanted to say congratulations, because despite one of the emerging risks identified in the audit as ICT, you've actually used it to your advantage when it came to budgetary expenditure. Thank you. Chair, would you like me to keep my Part E questions for the department until later?
Sorry, Honorable Member, when we deal with E, we deal with E of everything.
Okay.
If you want to cut across through the entities and the department, please deal with that as well.
Okay, no apologies. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too many questions at once. Okay. Okay, then the department, in the audit committee report, I asked about the auditing of transfers to municipalities. Now, transfers to municipalities fall on page, let me just see it quickly, page 279 and 280 of the department, okay, under Annexure 1A. Okay, so I asked the audit committee and the AG whether these transfers get audited. Now, in my mind, I thought that they were going to answer me, okay, Deirdre, we gave 5 Rand to this municipality and we just check that the 5 Rand has gone from one bank account to another. But then they spoke about when the money is transferred to a municipality, that there are inspections as well as completion certificates on what the transfers has gone to. For example, if the 5 Rand was for a library and you had to go check whether the 5 books are at the library or if the sports field has been built. Now, the reason I'm asking is I just want to find out, last year in 2020, which is in this financial year reporting, the Central Karoo district in Laingsburg specifically, the Central Karoo district received 717,350 Rand as a transfer. I know because I was there at the launch. So it was an actual transfer. So my assumption is it's going to be in this financial statement. Now, I think I did find it a bit earlier, but I don't see it really broken down in Annexure 1A. And when you look at Laingsburg there, it shows 65% spent on the funding, that 1.4 million has been spent, and the original amount was 2.1, 2.2, and unspent funding is about 780,000. Now, 780,000 is very similar to 771, so I'm not sure if that is related, but money to the Central Karoo was given for sports and infrastructure and stuff like that, especially with the 2023 Netball World Cup coming up. Now, I don't know how that money gets audited and how the expenditure of that money gets audited. So I just want to know, does that money that was given in this financial year reporting get audited as part of the municipalities' books in terms of them spending? Because obviously the money gets transferred. Or is the auditing of what that was spent on in this financial statements? And if so, if the HOD can just assist me with showing me the pages which relates to that funding specifically. Thank you, Chair.
Are you finished, Honorable Bartman? Is that all on Part E for now? I think it.
Yes, Chair. It's the auditing of transfers. I just want to understand a little bit, how does that occur and where do I get that extra information? Thank you.
I got that. Any further question from honorable members? If there's no further question, then from honorable members, I will allow then the department to respond. Just before the department respond, I see Honorable Nkondlo, because I will want us to deal with questions once and then we deal with answers as well, unless it's gonna be follow-ups. Now, Honorable Nkondlo.
No, thanks. Thank you, Chair. My question is to the department on the contingent liabilities. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is page 200, and I think they started 262. Yes, Chair, I just wanted to perhaps just get some clarity from the department about, I think, the claim that is currently being engaged with the department, and it seems, I think there's an indication that the matter may be taken up to the Constitutional Court, and one just want to understand at this point how much has the department spent on this litigation here with the midnight storm in investments, and also, Chair, in terms of the labor appeal court, if there is any indication at this point, I see that it is also a matter that the department is taking up to the Constitutional Court. For me, I think the first question about these, I just wanted to understand to date, how much has the department spent on these litigations, and actually on these two that I've just mentioned. By when do they foresee some kind of a conclusion on these matters, if any? And then, Chair, I think my other question, Chair, I'm just trying to go back to the page. Maybe because it's a general question, I just wanted to understand, because as I was going through, I think this particular section, what would be the difference between contractors and consultants in terms of the definition of, the relevant work that they are given? When they are sort of reported differently? I'm just interested in understanding the difference between the two, that is a contractor and a consultant. I think those just are my questions at this point, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honorable Nkondlo. Can we get a response from the department and the entities?
Thank you, Chair. The questions for the department on the unspent conditional grants, actually for HWC on the unspent conditional grants and the projects on hold, will be answered by Mr. Janse van Rensburg, as well as, and then CFO will cover the audit fees. Dr. Boer is going to cover the one relating to the transfers to Central Karoo. And then at the end, Mr. Janse van Rensburg will come back and talk to us about Midnight Storm. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD. And Chair, I can speak to the HWC's unspent conditional grant. The funding relates to the Heritage Tourism Route project, which we've branded as the Cradle of Human Culture. And it identifies several sites throughout the country of heritage, archaeological and paleontological significance. Specifically in the Western Cape, the three sites include the Deep Kloof Rock Shelter, Pinnacle Point, and Blombos near Still Bay. The funding with regards to the HWC financial report relates to the specific interpretation center at the Diep Kloof rock shelter. We did proclaim the interpretation center as the Elands Bay Museum late 2019, and funding the funding has to be used now for the development of infrastructure, signage, and exhibitions. However, the building of the interpretation center is owned by the municipality, and the municipality underwent a change of council during the review period of this annual report. And so we had to reconnect and discuss with the new council with regards to the building. What that caused, unfortunately, was delays with the renovation of the building for the interpretation center, which the previous council undertook to do. And therefore, we could not move forward with spending the conditional grant funding on the interpretation center. However, outside of the scope of this annual report, but just for interest, is that we have reconnected with the new council, and they have started with some maintenance and renovations of the interpretation center building, and we will be commencing with those projects with the installation of infrastructure, exhibitions and signage, etc. And so to answer the question whether the progress or the project is commencing or if there's progress, yes, and that will report obviously in the current financial year's annual report. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So to respond to the question around audit fees, so remember the scope hasn't changed year on year, but what normally happens, because they start the audit in the previous financial year, so we would normally have a certain amount of expenditure related to the audit, but paid in the new financial year. So therefore, you would always see, the difference, or in some years, it may even show that we spent less, where in fact, if you look at it year on year, just in terms of the audit, the scope itself, that hasn't changed. The only difference is every year the AG increased their fees by between 10 and 20%. But other than that, we did not have a scope change. But I think it is because of the fact that we may have paid, that they may have done more work in the previous financial year, because they normally start in February and then they claim up until the 31st of March, which then goes to the previous financial year. And then obviously we have the overlap over the two financial years. And I think that is what is causing, skewness in terms of the expenditure. But just to confirm, there were no change in scope year on year. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, members, Minister, and colleagues. I'm responding to the question that the Honourable Member Bartman posed about Laingsburg. On page 147 of the department's annual report, it will be noted that Laingsburg is on the top of the page, page 147, Laingsburg Municipality, and as at 31 March, Laingsburg had spent 381,834. Subsequent to this report, Laingsburg has sent us a note to say that they have concluded on the project. My team and I will be meeting with the municipality in Laingsburg on the 24th of November to ascertain if all the things that we had agreed upon has now been concluded before we do a close-out report and a finalization report to make sure that all things are in terms of our agreement. So from our side, each municipality that we transfer to will send a quarterly report to us, which is filed, and we in turn will be meeting with the municipality on a regular basis to ensure that the funding is used for its intended purpose. Thank you, HD and Chairperson.
Thanks, Chair. Then the last one on Midnight Storm.
Thank you very much, HOD. Maybe just as a matter of background, that the court case concerning Midnight Storm involves the plaintiff making the point, or trying to make the point, that a provincial heritage site which was declared in the area close to Elands Bay has sterilized the owner of the property's rights for development. And this is very much opposed by HWC, as the declaration of a provincial heritage site does not sterilize the rights of development, but only puts in parameters that need to apply for, like permits, in order to do such. However, there was a court case that was heard in the North Gauteng High Court in August 2019, and the court dismissed the plaintiff's case. The matter was subsequently appealed to the Supreme Court of Appeal and was granted, and therefore the outcome is still pending, the outcome of the appeal. However, in the interim, the plaintiff has approached HWC with a tentative offer of settlement, in which they proposed that the development be limited to the buffer zone of the provincial heritage site in the area closest to Elands Bay. HWC's Impact Assessment Committee reviewed it and expressed the initial in-principle support for the proposal, but it would be subject to a full application being approved by HWC. So currently, just to mention that the matter has been postponed because of this potential settlement, and we are now waiting for the full application from the applicant. There has been no cost, legal fees specifically, from HWC with this matter to date. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD, Honorable Bartman.
Chair, firstly, I would like to thank the HOD for bringing me to page 147. I didn't see that part because I do know that usually in this committee we only deal with C and E. But given that this relates directly to the question I previously asked, so Chair, you have to please indulge me here. I want to just know, did Laingsburg Municipality, because it indicates here amount spent 381,834 rand, unless I'm missing 3 zeros, or I'm not sure. But anyway, so that amount was spent at the time of the writing of these books. Then a letter was received by Laingsburg Municipality subsequent to this annual report that they've concluded everything. Okay. The department also gets quarterly reports, and on the 24th of November, they're going to go and see for themselves, and they're going to get a close-out report. Now that's transfer of 717350. Was that transfer for the upgrading of bathroom lights? Because it says here upgrade bathroom lights, whereas the other municipalities have different other stuff that they're doing with similar amounts of money. And if it was for the upgrade of bathroom lights, has anyone from the department been to Laingsburg to see what was implemented with this particular money? Because if this is the field that I'm thinking about, which is likely the JJ Ellis, I've been to the other fields. In my case, I've been to the Flatland one, and I've been to all of them. But if this is the JJ Ellis Sports Ground, then I would seriously like to suggest to the department and the minister, and quite frankly, Scopa, to go ask the municipality what has happened to the 717,350 rand. And Chair, later in my resolutions, I will then also ask once received, if not received already, for the respective inspection and close-out letters and quarterly reports as well, because I would like to see what the MM has written to the department about this 717,000 rand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bartman. Is there, okay, before we can allow the department to respond, Honorable Nkondlo?
No, thank you, Chair. I just have one new question. In page 231, if the department can just explain to me what brought about and composed this almost I think more than 100% increase on transfers and subsidies from 2019-20 to 2021 of the budget there from 21.273 to the actual expenditure of 63.670. If they can just indicate to me what brought this up and what exactly drove this sort of huge increase in that particular program. For I think it's management. It's under the management 4.1 management program. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Honorable Member. Department.
Thank you, Chair. The CFO will take the latter question.
Thank you, HOD. So maybe just to clarify, so that the 100% that relates to the percentage spent. So it does not indicate, an increase year on year, which I think the question relates to. So can member please just clarify?
Not sure I hear you. If you can repeat, and there's some noise as you were speaking, so I could not hear.
One, right? And the question was around the transfers and subsidies and the 100%. Am I correct? Did I understand the question correctly?
My question, ma'am, is if you look at the final appropriation in the previous financial year versus the current, I wanted to understand the jump in terms of the figures. What was behind that? That is what I wanted to understand. What composed such a jump from the previous financial year's appropriation to the one of the current financial year, which is the 62.394. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, member. So the additional funding is related to a 30 million that we received within the sport area. So you will see if you go, so it's 4.1 management, and if you go a page before that, 229, you'll see that sport and recreation starts on that page. So the difference is the 30 million related to the Netball World Cup that was received in the year under review. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and then I would like to just close off on the by Member Bartman.
Thanks. When we say upgrade of bathroom lights, it's only one of the aspects that have been upgraded at the J.J. Ellis sport grounds, and hence the reason why we as the departmental officials will be going personally to confirm that all the things that were in the MOA, because we have not opened it, we have not accepted the report until we've actually done our inspection. And 24 November is when we will do that. So the upgrade of the bathroom lights would have only been one of the many things that would have been done, but we have no problem to provide the Laingsburg municipality report, which was what they considered their closeout report, but we still need to sign off on that one. But it was an upgrade of the facility, HOD and Chairperson. Thank you.
Sorry, just on that issue of Laingsburg, I think one of the questions that Honorable Bartman has asked, if I got her clearly, has there been anybody from the department who's been there physically to see whether has this thing done? Maybe Honorable Batman, if I'm not correct, you can maybe correct me. I think that's also one of the questions you've asked.
Gee, I'm trying really hard not to laugh in my office here, but the reason I started with the auditing of transfers in the audit committee is because I first wanted to understand how do these things get audited? Because it also doesn't help. I jump the gun and then I just ask all my questions, but I don't understand how the process works. Now, we obviously now know about the reports. We now know about the inspections and the closeout reports. Okay. We are now told by the department the inspection must still happen, and despite the municipality believing that they have now submitted a closeout report, the department must also do a closeout report. And I'm told now that this 381,834 Rand is for the bathroom lights. Okay, I've been to the bathrooms of JJ Ellis many times before, including recently, so ek weet nog nie lekker daarvan, maar nou in elk geval. Now, you're telling me that there's an MOA, a Memorandum of Agreement. So essentially, when you get there on the 24th of November, what was spent must then obviously be what was in the Memorandum of Agreement. And the inspection for that will then obviously take place in the closeout report. Now, firstly, what was the money for? What you're saying it's for the upgrade of the facility. So when I hear facility, I think, okay, the whole sports ground. So maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a sports expert or anything like that. Please do assist me here. So what specifically was the money for? What is in the MOA? Then my other question is, what happens on the 24th of November when you get to the JJ Ellis Sports Ground and what was spent is not what was in the MOA? Hypothetically, what happens then when you don't see what you paid for? Thank you.
So thank you, Chair and Honourable Member Bartman. So yes, we do the inspection and we do go with a copy of the MOA. I don't have a copy of the MOA just here with me. We do about 200 MOAs per annum. So it would be difficult for me to say exactly the contents of each MOA, but I'm quite happy to send that along with their closeout report. But from our side, we go and we make sure that everything that was agreed upon has been concluded, that the norms and standards that we have agreed to has been adhered to. And yes, if they haven't done what they were supposed to do, then we would tell them that. We would have our meeting with the municipality, because of course we have in the past taken money back from municipalities that have not used the money after its extended period that we have given to them. So hypothetically, it is quite possible, as we have done in the past, to ask for the funding back from the municipality, but we engage with the municipality before we do anything else. So that is what would happen. But it's not only the 381 was not only spent for the upgrade of the bathroom lights. This would have been one of the aspects that would have been there, but it would not have been the only aspect that they would have paid for. In order to do any of these facility projects, there's engineering costs that need to come in, there's quantity surveyor costs, there's all sorts of other costs that you first need to do before you actually start with a building or the upgrade of anything. But it was JJ Ellis, and I'm personally going down on the 24th to Laingsburg, and I will be making sure that I go with my MOA and a closeout report to the facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. HOD, are there any other addition from your side or from any member of your department?
No, we are covered. Thank you very much, Chair.
Further question from honorable members, follow-ups or something like that? Honorable members, I think then just a general question maybe to the department, also maybe to the Auditor General as well as to the Audit Committee. I think we all give credit to the performance of the department in terms of its unqualified audit report as well as the clean audit report. And I think it's actually, is it for the 4th or the 5th time the department is receiving these? And I think it has been echoed even by the Audit Committee, even the Auditor General as well. So surely now, then there's the issue of, it can just be the general question as to whether we've got clean audit and maybe what can be there beyond clean audit. Is there nothing else beyond clean audit? Can we, because I think also in the report of the Audit Committee, there is something to the effect that I just want to check, maybe the Auditor General and maybe the Audit Committee and the department is always constant reference to performance audit. Now, so far as performance audit, who must really initiate the performance audit? Must it be the department or must it be the requirement from the Auditor General?
Who's the question to?
Chair, is the question to us or to the
You can
Audit
also
Committee?
answer it, HOD.
Yes, we definitely would love to, as difficult as it will be, to move towards performance auditing as being the key component and not only focusing on the financial statements, because that's where we are going. We are going to outcomes, to have an understanding of the investments that we are making in the various programs. Are they having the desired outcomes on the ground? So it's definitely naturally the next step. But I would appreciate an input from the AG or the Audit Committee Chair as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD, for that response. It's very helpful. I know the chairperson of the Audit Committee always, since I've started on this, he's always been hammering a lot on that. It might be interesting to also get his view on that. Chairperson?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Yes, I think that this is something that between internal audit and between the external auditors is the performance auditing, looking at economy, efficiency and effectiveness, looking at value for money auditing, looking at these factors. This is something that we as the Audit Committee have been encouraging internal audit to move towards. We've also have mentioned it to the AG several times, where, as the accounting officer has mentioned, looking at outcomes rather than just outputs, and looking at impact. What's the impact of our activities? And we've constantly said that it's great to have a clean audit and governance is important, but governance then becomes second nature, and service delivery is what should be paramount. And if in the course of service delivery and doubling of service delivery, we still have an unqualified audit, but we've way beyond enhanced service delivery, then our stakeholders out there would be happy. It's great to have clean audits, and if one asks our stakeholders, would you have an unqualified audit and doubling of service delivery, or clean audit and service delivery stays where it is? Then how will the stakeholders answer to that question? We're not saying one must sacrifice the clean audits, but I think sometimes there's a trade-off between utilization of resources to preserve a clean audit. And because we work in a finite resource environment, those resources ultimately come or displaces resources or funding from service delivery. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. AG?
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, Chair, I think from our perspective, we are basically mandated to audit the financial statements, the report on predetermined objectives, and then compliance with legislation. That's our mandate. That's in terms of our act. There's also a portion of the act that speaks to performance audits, economy, efficiency. So we're trying to move more and more into a direction where we can, address some of the concerns around the outcomes and performance auditing. But it also comes at a cost, Chairperson. These skills to audit those outputs are not, coming at, it's coming at a cost. And so we, in terms of our sector reporting that we now do, we try to integrate some of the matters into our audit process. So it's definitely something we can consider. We are considering on an annual basis, Chairperson, in terms of, in areas that we consider important in service delivery to the departments. But as I've indicated, it's sometimes difficult to balance what we have to do in terms of our mandate versus what is optionals in terms of the mandate of the Auditor General. But it's certainly something that we're trying to address. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG. Thanks very much for those comments, gentlemen. They were very much helpful to me. Now, I want to check whether, if there are no further question from honorable members, I wanted to check if we can now go to the members of the public, if there are any members of the public who will want to ask questions. But before we can do that, I see Honorable Maseko's hand is up.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a little bit, maybe to assist me, question to the AG and maybe the department or the internal audit, they can answer me. I just want to find out, how do we, with the investment of the cost that the AG talks about, how do we use that investment to the AG to make sure that it sort of increase the performance sometimes within the departments? And I mean, like the municipalities, they pay AG and the departments, but how do we upgrade or level up with the investment of the money that we pay for the services that they are giving to the different departments? And I'm asking this because of, I'll make an example of the outcome of the irregular expenditure, that sometimes they will say to us that it doesn't mean the service was not delivered. But when you really go in depth to say, but if I can have $1 million to build for that, in human settlement example, if I have a 1 million in human settlements to say that we are going to build 20 houses, and I floor the policy and say I'm going to give Deirdre construction company that money to go and build the same houses. Service delivery happened, the houses that were expected has happened, but I floored the policy. Is that going to be irregular expenditure? I mean, there is that loophole that happens. Now, to a certain extent, personally, I feel we don't. Sometimes it's like the AG is where we tick boxes and not level up as we move forward to make sure that also there is a responsibility of adding value in the performances to the department, so that we, or the local government in the municipality, that we see that there is upgrading of the auditing represent performance that is better throughout the years, that you don't have the situation of your Canaland, your Cedarburg and your Beaufort West. You see something that those municipalities account in the finances that they get. I wonder if they get what I'm asking them, that do we see that happening with that investment, or it's a little bit difficult with the policies or with the responsibilities that they have as the AG. Thank you, Chair, for that indulgence.
Thanks very much, Honorable Maseko. I don't know, what is there any response maybe that could want, anybody would like to make a response to the remark that we made, a question by Honorable Maseko?
Chair, the question is more to the AG, but from DCAS's side, we can definitely say we've seen value in the work of the AG within the department. There's been significant value add in the audits, and it has assisted the department to be more efficient and effective in the way that it delivers its work over the years. We can actually track it. So there's definitely value in the work of the AG, but I think it would be interesting to hear from the AG itself. Thank you, Chair.
AG?
All right, thank you, Chair. Now, Chairperson, we certainly believe, and I think the stakeholders will be able to tell if there's value in our work. But from our perspective, we definitely put in effort to reduce the audit fee in relation to the work that we are trying to do. And that is to audit, as efficiently as we possibly can. However, it's difficult for us. We do some, when we do our, for example, our performance audits, when we verify some of the validity, accuracy, and completeness of the performance indicators and targets that's reported, we do inspections of those reported numbers in the performance report. However, it's sometimes difficult, and that is where the skills comes in. For a person qualified as an auditor to inspect a road, to say that this is a good quality road, or to say that this is a good quality house, or that kind of stuff where you have auditing or you're looking towards the outputs of matters, because those are the expertise of engineers, of quantity surveyors, and other expertise and skills. So we have been on a drive within our office to integrate more of those skills into the Office of the Auditor General, where we do employ engineers and quantity surveyors and so on to assist us with, inspecting the quality that has been delivered. And this has been a drive mainly in the bigger service delivery departments like your education, your health, your transport and public works. But I'm sure certainly going forward, we'll try and integrate some of those skills into the smaller departments to ensure that service delivery quality, the output of the services are indeed living up to the standards that's required, by the public. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG. Now, honorable members, I would want us now to give this opportunity to any member of the public who might have indicated or who is present would like to ask a question on the report, on the annual report of the department. Mr. David, has there been any indication of a member of the public in present or anyone who would like to ask a question from the public?
Morning, Chairperson. Unfortunately, not. There has been no indication from members of the public to participate in this afternoon session.
No, thank you very much then for that. In that respect, then, honorable members, there is no questions, and just want to check whether are there any remarks that the minister would like to make. Firstly, is the HOD, are there any remarks, HOD, that you'd like to make from your side?
Honorable Mavimbi, it's Minister Honorable Marie, it's Honorable speaking. No, nothing from my side, just to thank you and the committee for the deliberations, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. HOD?
Thank you very much, Chair. Also to echo the sentiments of the Minister, just to thank the committee for their work. it really helps us improve and make sure that we deliver to communities what we had committed to do. We'd also like to thank the Auditor General as well as the Audit Committee for the value that they add to our work. Whilst we are very excited about presenting ourselves to the AG, and also looking at performance auditing, we are also concerned about the risks, of course, that may take some resources away, as the audit committee chair is just well articulated about. It could cause us to now focus on getting clean audits in the performance auditing space and make us lose focus on the delivery itself. But I think it is something that we need to do. All indications are we need to be going in that direction. We just need to be guarded and ensure also that we do not have audit fatigue, because for us now, as December starts, I think the Auditor General will be coming to our offices to begin its work as we've just come out of the other audit, and we are looking forward to welcoming back. But most importantly for us now is to just say thank you very much for the value that they add to our work. It definitely doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, HOD. Chairperson of the Audit Committee, are there any comments or remarks you'd like to make?
No, Honourable Chairperson, nothing from my side. Just the department, they've done exceptionally well and they've maintained their clean audits for all these years. We look forward to continually supporting the department. Thank you, Honourable Chair, and thanks to the members of SCOPA for keeping the stakeholders on our toes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. AG?
Once again, thank you, Chair. Now, thanks, Chair, to yourself and members for all the questions and the interactions that we had with the committee as well as with the department. We really appreciate the interaction and looking forward to be partners, strategic partners in building, the Western Cape and South Africa at large. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG. I think then, honorable members, let me also, right from my side, make use of this opportunity to thank the department and the minister as well as the HOD for coming to present themselves in front of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts for accountability as well as for the sake of good governance. And then also like to thank the department once again for achieving the clean audit. And then we are looking forward into the future of really maybe we can be one of the provinces that can actually start this performance audit so that we can really begin to drive the issues of service delivery. And then believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, from the department and from the entities, when we do this exercise, I want to always stress this, is not for the purposes of catching you up, but it's just want to make sure that we play our role as the members of parliament that are supposed to hold the executive and actually the whole of the provincial government accountable. And we are doing that in the spirit of good governance to make sure that we are actually continuing to be the leaders in good governance. Now, with all that, I think then we will be like to excuse you so that we can actually continue with the business of the committee. If members of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts and other members present can remain behind whilst the department and the entities are actually moving out of the virtual meeting so that we can continue with the business of the committee.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson,
Thank you, Chair.
and goodbye.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and goodbye, everyone.
Honorable members, I think if all of us who are here, I just want to check if are there any proposals for resolutions that we may take regarding the report, the annual report of the department and the entities that we have actually received. Honorable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to request, please, the memorandum of agreement between the department and the Laingsburg municipality for the 717,350 rand transfer which they received in the financial year, based on the information also on page 147 as well as page 280. I would like to request the letter which they have already received, as they have indicated, from the Laingsburg municipality, indicating that subsequent to this annual report that the money has already been spent, as well as all the quarterly reports on the spending of this money, if any. And once the inspection has been completed on the 24th of November by the department, I would please like to request the inspection report as well as the close-out report on this matter. Yes, in terms of documentation, that is all, Chair. And whether or not we go for an oversight to see the implementation by the municipality of these funds will also, I think, depend on the answers that we receive back on this front. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that proposal, Honorable Bartman. I think also sometimes what I really find strange from the department, when I ask if they could not seem not to be able to give clear answers on this, because when I said, have they been there? Have someone gone there? For example, you did indicate that you've been there, you know what was done. There seems to be nobody really who is able to give a clear answer. It was a simple answer that they could have just given, that yes or no, we've been there or haven't been there. But I think I agree with your resolution, with your proposal for a resolution. And also, honorable members, there is nothing wrong in us visiting the municipality as the standing committee, especially if it's money that has been from the provincial government. Well, if it was their money, really their impact must take care of that. But if it's money from us, we've got every right to actually go there. But anyway, thank you very much, Honorable Bartman, for that. And Honorable Maseko.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I don't know how to put this, but I'm wondering if it's possible that we can maybe get the briefing in future about the metrics of the transfers from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture as they allocate the monies to the municipalities, like for your sports ground or for the different, we can check, maybe Dustin can help us to check what are the common things that on annual basis the department transfers monies to the municipalities. Then we can request that they must come and brief us about the metrics. How do they know? When do they allocate the money to the municipalities? Under what circumstances? So how do they choose the municipality? When do they feel that this municipality has to get that, has to be allocated that finance for a certain project? Maybe if we can get that, it will help us as we do the annual report in the coming financial year to find out that how do they go about to take the decision. And I'm saying this because if you have the municipality like your Ghanaland, and I'm making an example, that you know there is difficulty of the skills in that municipality that they cannot, why the department doesn't take responsibility to implement that project, help that municipalities to do that job, rather than giving the money whilst you know that the skill is not there, there's no way that they can deliver what you expect them to deliver. Thank you, Chair. I wonder if it makes sense.
Yes, no, I think, Dustin, you've got that, ne?
I've got that, Chairperson.
Sure. Excellent. Any further proposal for resolution? Just one, I would like to kind of make, there is this issue of the IFMS. I suppose that can be just be a general resolution really we can take, because we were supposed to be a pilot project, but I think the response from the AG and I think even from the audit committee was to the effect that maybe as we are going to be seeing the Department of the Premier as well as the Treasury, we can find out actually from them as to how far that project is, and maybe even begin to suggest that, because I think there is nothing wrong even in us initiating. Maybe if we can just get a progress report on how far is this IFMS project, because it's something that has been coming for years. And then I believe when a pilot is a pilot, it cannot be forever. It's supposed to be a transitional arrangement. A pilot is a transitional arrangement to test waters. You can't test waters for more than 5 years, 6 years, or for that matter. So if we can just get some progress report as to how far are we on this IFMS project, I think it can also help in alleviating a lot of these problems that we are having, this question that we keep on asking about performance audit as well. So that will be just one of my suggested resolution, a progress on the IFMS project, and I think it can just be a general or a transversal resolution we take as COPA. Honorable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for reminding me as well. I completely forgot about that earlier. I completely support you with getting a briefing. The IFMS pilot, to my knowledge, is something that comes from National Treasury, and then Provincial Treasury also eventually has to roll it out. So if we could please invite those two respective treasuries to brief us on that and the rollout of that, because we also can't keep asking year after year on the implementation of the pilot. The IFMS pilot, though, is different to the performance auditing. The IFMS project relates to using the modern technology in the financial accounting systems, whereas performance auditing has more to do with the Auditor General. So perhaps to put those two separately to the respective stakeholders might be a little bit more prudent, if possible. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much, Honorable Partner. Now, if there are no further resolution, Honorable members, I think then that means that we have come to the end of our meeting. Let me once again thank you very much, honorable members, for availing yourself for our first SCOPA meeting for this year's annual report. I know it has not been easy. You've just been coming out of a very hectic political program of elections, but you have definitely availed yourself. Thank you very much for that, and also to our ever available staff members that are always there, led by Mrs. Lizette Klute, as well as Mr. Dustin David and Masintle Motsapi and the IT department. Thank you very much for always being available. Just for your information, also there won't be SCOPA meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday. Our next meeting is going to be on Thursday and Friday. I think I've got that correctly, Mr. Davidson.
Yes, Chairperson, you are correct.
Yes, no. Thank you very much, honorable members. The meeting is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Siraj.
Thank you very much, members. Have a lovely afternoon.